Good morning, ladies, gentlemen, guys, girls, everyone out there on the channel. My name's Rob. Got a question this morning uh, from a guy he's been with YouTube recently the entire time. I think all 9 seasons. This will be the 10th. And his name's Hammer Time. Hammer Time says, let me see, let me find the question. Okay. I love red, white, and blue racing, but I don't really follow NASCAR. Can you talk about the differences in the tracks, super speedway, oval? What makes people run better at one and not another? All right. Really, you got four types of tracks. You got road courses, you got short tracks, you got intermediate tracks. They're mostly like a mile long, and you got super speedways. Intermediate, most of the mile and a half ones are considered uh, larger speedways too. But I guess they're in the intermediate league there with a mile. We got 1.366, so that's just over a mile and a third. A lot of mile and a halves, and then we got a couple of 2.5 mile tracks, and one or two, maybe 2 mile tracks. Let's start with the road courses. Road courses are normally set up um, pretty even balance on a car. They don't want any more weight on the left side than the right. Maybe a little more on the right hand side because you're making right hand turns. You're going that way primarily. Um, Fuel goes in sometime at um, Watkins Glen, New York. The fuel actually goes in on the passenger side of the car because you're going that way. Um, but when you go to Sears Point, the pits are outside of the track, so to speak, instead of inside, and it stays on the left hand side. So two road courses, totally different right there. Um, but they try to have it as close to even balance as possible for the right hand turns and the left hand turns, um, and that's pretty much a road course. Those good at it are the people that can drive uh, road courses really, drive street courses and stuff. Shane Van Gisbergen last year won at Chicago. There's no reason to think he won't do well at Watkins Glen, Sears Point, and Chicago. Rusty Wallace was always known as a great road course racer. Ricky Rudd, he was always known as one. That was just their strength, and that's what they were good at. Short tracks, totally different. Um, you don't have to have. You want a little more of the grill open, so you can keep it cooler. You want to keep, especially the brake ducts. Um, the front brakes at at, at short tracks, dirt tracks would be more interesting. Dirt tracks, they sadly NASCAR does not run but one dirt track race, and they're going to get away from that one. I mean, I say sadly, it's not my favorite. Dirt is not my favorite. I'd rather watch pavement racing any day. Short tracks generally has big ducts to where it kind of draws the air in, and the air is going straight to where the brake pads and the rotors are. If you notice, anybody that watches racing, if you watch them race at Martinsville, Richmond, Bristol, um, after 50 laps, you'll see where they're starting to glow red. They can really take the pressure of it because they get such thick brake pads. Um, it can get up to 1,500 degrees, and it can last. They can hold off, but sometimes you'll see them break, and that's when they have. That's the biggest problem most time you have at a short track is lack of brakes. They obviously geared a lot lower, so they can. come out to shoot and go when he need them to. And sometimes, even in Martinsville, they'll change gears just to try to number one, save fuel. Number two, save the brakes a little bit. Let's go. Let's go to some 1 mile especially. Let me call them out. New Hampshire, flat 1 mile track. It's just a flat 1 mile. And Phoenix, totally different tracks, but they're both flat 1 mile tracks. I'll get to your question in just a minute, Sean. Sean, I've got your car too, number 2. Yeah, so you'll be ready for Division 2. Flat tracks, about 1 mile long. They are primarily the ones where you want to get as much air to the ducts as possible, but you want to limit how much air goes into that car because you still got to. There's a little bit of draft involved, and you want to be as slipstream as possible to get through and cut through the air. They will run different types of size tires. Stagger is what they call it, okay? Stagger, and you wonder, okay, what the hell is stagger? Number one, they're going to put a little more weight on the left side at Phoenix or New Hampshire. You're turning left. That's the only way you're turning. The whole race, that's the way you want to turn. They're going to put a little more weight on that side so it can be leaning that way just a little bit more. Stagger, all right, what do we call stagger? What is stagger? I'll tell you. They run just about the same size tires on the right side as they would the left side, but they run less air in the tires. Let's say the premium amount of pressure is 35. Well, they're not going to start the race at 35. I'll tell you that because those tires are almost going to be flat on the car the first 3 or 4 laps. They may run the left side 18 and the right side's 20, 21. And then they'll kind of puff up and gather air in the tires as they run, believe it or not. But you want less in those left side, so it's kind of leaning so you can make the turns better. I'll come to intermediate tracks. It's like a mile and a half. Atlanta, Texas. Atlanta and Texas. There's a couple other mile and a half. And then I'll get to the 2 miles and 2.5 miles. First, though, Sean Oakman says, what was your honest thoughts on the fight between Ricky Stenhouse Jr. and Kyle Busch? Well, I think Kyle Busch overreacted. To that. I don't think Ricky Stenhouse Jr. meant to push him into the fence. Kyle, once he did it, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. had 200 laps to think about it. And that's the one thing. That's the one thing I think. If NASCAR could do it all over again, they would have allowed Ricky Stenhouse Jr. to go outside the track, go home, cool the hell off. He had an hour and a half, 2 hours to stir and simmer, and it got worse. It didn't help. Ricky Stenhouse Sr. got in on the fighting. He probably should be banned from the garage area. That's probably the way it should be. Kyle Busch said they had them situated. Every person Stenhouse had out there had them situated in different places so they could just grab people when they wanted to and all. But Kyle had to have known that he was pissed. And if his crew didn't tell him, that shame on them. But Stenhouse Jr. $75,000 is a lot of money to get fined for that. I wasn't really a big fan of this fine. I think NASCAR dropped the ball on that one. I really do. They should have let Ricky Stenhouse Jr. out of the racetrack. He and his family, whoever was there with him, any of his crew members, let them leave, then start the race back. That's what I would have done. Um, Chances are next week he would have forgotten about it. He'd have been pissed on the way home, got him some uh, Whataburger or Jack in the Box or whatever, and go home and simmer down. He'd have been home a couple hours before everybody else. What track has the most straight area as opposed to turn area? Um, some of the longest straights out there are at Pocono, Pennsylvania. That's a 2.5 mile track, but it's a triangle. And one of the straights is nearly a mile long. It's really a long ways. And by the time you count the turns and everything, it's 2.5 miles around that track. But it's just like a triangle. And each turn is different. That's probably the trickiest track they go to all year long because you can set your car up to go well into turn one, but turn two is called the tunnel turn. It's actually got a tunnel underneath it, and a lot of guys end up. It's not real. It's not banked real well anywhere around there. It's an interesting race to watch because generally, whoever's got the most horsepower and can handle the best generally wins that race. Fastest car doesn't always win that one. So let's go from 1 mile tracks, the flat ones, to a mile and a half. Charlotte, Atlanta, that's the two main ones. In Texas, Charlotte, Atlanta, and Texas. They're like a tri-oval as well. I really am not thrilled about that. I like the pure oval tracks better, like a Darlington, Dover. They're pure ovals. I like them the best. These tri-ovals, they try to make it where they have to slow down some, and they do end up having to. But the turns 1, 2, 3, and 4 on each end, they're pretty well banked. And you want to try to run at the bottom as much as you can. You got to have a lot of horsepower, but you better be pretty slipstream as well, where you can get in there and kind of meddle around with the way you're running. Now, Atlanta runs a little different than it used to because now they run what they call restrictor plates. Restrictor plates is something they put in the carburetor. NASCAR mandates it, and they build them. NASCAR builds them, and they give each car a restrictor plate, and all it does is restricts the air going to the motor, thus less horsepower and better gas mileage. Yes, better gas mileage, but other than that, it keeps all the cars together in a pack. A lot of people like it. I don't like it. I never liked it at Daytona. I never liked it at Talladega. I thought the racing was better, more fun to watch when Daytona and Talladega if you watch it before 1990, 88, 88, 90, 88, 89, 86, 87, that's when they had no restrictor plates. And whoever had the fastest car could roll. And that's just the way it worked. But down in Atlanta, it's a 1.5 mile track, and they still are running a restrictor plate. Not a big fan of it, but it keeps them in packs. A couple of 2 mile tracks. We got one in California, and we got one in Michigan. Now, the 2 mile tracks are totally different. 2 mile tracks, they have intermittent grooves graduated. So at the bottom, let's say it may be 12 degrees. The next groove may be 14 degrees. The next one may be 18 degrees, and then it goes on up maybe 23 degrees, something like that. The reason they do it that way is that way when you're racing side by side, you have a better chance of not losing the car the higher you go, especially if you get dirty air and you're close to the wall. They want you to have as much banking as possible. Michigan has been known as some of the closest racing ever, but they don't have a restrictor plate. Uh, they do draft. So if you do get behind another car and you both have the same amount of power, you're probably going to get about 2 extra miles an hour. And if you add another car to it, you're probably going to add another half mile to it or something like that. They can go a lot faster in a line of 4 and 5 and 6, and that's the way it is. It's really a circular type track, but even in the turns, they can really make good time. Michigan is one of those tracks, and it's been known as a fuel mileage track in the past. Somebody would follow behind somebody for infinite laps, and if you did, you could let off the gas a lot of times because you was faster than the car in front of you. But if you stayed behind them, that pedaling off and on would allow you to get 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 extra laps. That's 10, 12 miles to a tank, which is unheard of. But it would happen. You don't see it so much now with stage points and stuff. They run all out now. Talladega, Daytona. They have 2.5 mile tracks. Talladega's 2.66 miles, so a little over 2.5. Back in the day, they could run 210, 212, 214, 215 in packs at Talladega and at Daytona, both. This is prior to them putting the restrictor plate on it. Restrictor plate limits the air, allows better fuel mileage, and then also, if you draft them with somebody, you can get a lot better fuel mileage. Some race really smart like it and try to save their stuff, get behind 5 or 6 or 7 in a row, and they become the back car. The danger of that is if somebody in that group loses it, slides up a little bit, moves around a little bit, then it could be, it could end your day right there, disastrous. But otherwise, if you trust the people in front of you and they race really smart, and you're right behind them, you got an excellent chance of maybe winning that race if you put yourself in the right position in the last 40 laps of the race. That's pretty much it. The smallest track, Martinsville, 0.526, so just a little over a half mile. Bristol's 0.533, and Richmond now is 3/4 of a mile, 0.75, and a couple of 1 mile tracks. Like I say, going all the way to 2.66 miles. The road courses, they're a little over 2 miles each, going all the way around. So if you end up having a problem, a lot of times they got to hook them up to the truck in order to be able to bring them back in. Hook them with a chain or something, yank them back in, a tow truck of some sort. Combine NASCAR with a wrestling video. If someone wrecks a person, and anyone who bumped that driver gets into the ring in the grass area. That's Keith doing NASCAR wrestling. Wrestle car. Be pretty interested with it. That's pretty much what I know about NASCAR. My first race ever at a NASCAR at a Cup event at the time, Winston Cup event. It was probably about 1984, 1985. I went to Martinsville. I've been to Martinsville. I've been to Richmond. Been to Dover. I've been to Bristol. I've been to Charlotte. I went to the old North Carolina Motor Speedway at Rockingham. I've rode by Pocono. not too far from Vegas Motor Speedway. So, oh yeah, Texas Motor Speedway, Texas. I've been close to that up in Fort Worth. I wasn't too far away from that one. Talladega, I was real close to that one. But the ones I've been to, I've probably been to seven, 6 or 7 of them. Never seen Atlanta. Never driven by Atlanta or Darlington, neither one. Uh, I've driven by Daytona. So, um, my favorite track on the circuit is Darlington. Probably my least favorite, like one, I'll just be like, click. I don't care to watch it. Probably is, wow, let's see. I'm not a big fan of Bristol ever since they did put the concrete in there. I like the old blacktop better. Dirt at Bristol, I won't watch yet. I won't spend my time watching that. But the old Bristol was one of the most famous tracks of all. If I were going to try to tell somebody uh, to watch NASCAR races, I would say pick a track you want to see. Maybe Darlington, okay? Maybe they got one called the Trans South 500, and probably sometime 1980s, and you'll see it's not a lot of room to pass, but good cars get to the front, and good drivers get to the front. That means a lot. It's 11:30 here. We're going to try to do qualifying in the next 24 to 48 hours. Maybe this afternoon. We may do it. And if we do it, we'll have qualifying, then I'll try to do racing afterwards. Good luck to everybody here in Season 10, Division 2, especially new drivers. Welcome. Division 1, I'll be back in Division 1 for the first time in 3 seasons. So we'll see what happens. It may end up being good, may not be. We'll see. God bless. We'll talk to you later. And I hope you all have a great, great Thursday afternoon. Bye-bye.